Touring with your band sounds like every rock star's dream. Crowds screaming your name, the thrill of the stage, and living the high life. But for some rock stars, the reality was a nightmare. Instead of bonding on the road, egos clashed, tempers flared, and Backstage turned into a war zone. The bad blood between these bands wasn't just about the music, it was personal. So what happens when the rock stars you thought would be best friends turn every tour into a disaster? Guns N' Roses versus Mötley Crüe, the punch that started it all. In 1989, things got ugly between two of the biggest rock bands of the time, Guns N' Roses and Mötley Crüe. It all started with a little drama in the Los Angeles nightclub scene, where Izzy Stradlin, the guitarist for Guns N' Roses, allegedly made a move on Vince Neil's wife. As if that wasn't enough, Stradlin supposedly didn't back off even after she rejected him. There were even claims that he got physical, kicking her while she was pregnant. To say Vince wasn't pleased would be an understatement. Fast forward to later that year at the MTV Music Awards, and the tension boiled over. As Stradlin walked off stage, Vince Neil took the opportunity to sucker punch him right in the face, and that's when all hell broke loose. The punch set off a media frenzy, with both bands throwing insults at each other, but the real fireworks started with the big personalities of Axl Rose and Vince Neil. Axl, never one to back down from a fight, started firing shots in interviews, even challenging Vince to settle things with guns, knives, or fists. Yes, really. Of course, Vince wasn't going to let that slide and responded by daring Axl to fight him anytime, any place. Their bitter rivalry played out in front of the media, feeding the rock and roll drama that the public craved. Nirvana's Kurt Cobain versus Guns N' Roses' Axl Rose. Clash of ideologies. In the early 90s, grunge and glam metal were worlds apart, especially when it came to Kurt Cobain and Axl Rose. Axl, the frontman of Guns N' Roses, was a fan of Nirvana, even going as far as wanting them to open for GNR on tour. But Kurt Cobain, the tortured soul behind Nirvana, wasn't exactly keen on being associated with Axl's band or the glam metal scene. In fact, Kurt made it very clear that Nirvana wasn't about the same rockstar lifestyle that Guns N' Roses thrived on. He called them out in a 1992 interview with Rolling Stone, saying they were junkies and part of everything wrong with rock music at the time. Ouch. Axl, of course, wasn't one to keep quiet, and he fired back in his signature style. He insulted Kurt and his wife, Courtney Love, making some pretty nasty comments, including a jab at their unborn child. During the MTV Music Awards in 1992, Courtney sarcastically asked Axl if he wanted to be their baby's godfather. Axl, who had clearly had enough, snapped and told her to shut up or I'll take you down. The whole thing was a media circus, and the feud only escalated from there. Red Hot Chili Peppers, Anthony Kiedis versus Faith No More's Mike Patton, a war over style. Anthony Kiedis, the charismatic frontman of the Red Hot Chili Peppers, has always been known for his intense energy on stage. He's the guy who could pull off wild dance moves, shirtless performances, and seemingly endless charisma. Basically, he's a force of nature when it comes to live shows. So when Mike Patton, the lead singer of Faith No More, and later Mr. Bungle, started to make waves with his own larger-than-life stage persona, Kiedis wasn't exactly thrilled. The accusation? Kiedis thought Patton was copying his style. The rivalry began to heat up as Kiedis publicly slammed Patton for ripping off his funk-inspired stage presence and energy. Things got more intense behind the scenes. Rumors began circulating that Kiedis was using his influence to sabotage Mr. Bungle's rise in the music scene. Their album release was delayed, and the band's performances at major festivals were pulled. The question everyone asked, was Kiedis behind this? Did he pull some strings to try and stop Patton's growing success? Whether he was directly involved or not, the tension was real, and the bad blood between the two bands only grew. Green Day's Billy Joe Armstrong versus Sex Pistols' Johnny Rotten, punk rock showdown. When you think punk rock, two names inevitably come to mind. Johnny Rotten, the snarling, anarchic frontman of the Sex Pistols, and Billy Joe Armstrong, the energetic and rebellious leader of Green Day. You might assume that these two punk icons would have mutual respect, right? Wrong. Instead, they became embroiled in one of the most iconic punk feuds, and it all started with Johnny Rotten's scathing criticism of Green Day in 1996. Rotten, the embodiment of old-school punk, wasn't exactly thrilled with Green Day's rise to fame. He called them copycats and accused them of having no original ideas, basically saying they were just a watered-down version of punk's true spirit. To Rotten, Green Day was part of a new wave of punk bands that he didn't consider real punk rockers. But Billy Joe Armstrong wasn't going to let this slide. He fired back, and in an interview, he cleverly pointed out the irony. If it weren't for bands like Green Day, Johnny Rotten, and the Sex Pistols wouldn't have had the opportunity to make their grand comeback with their reunion tour. So, in essence, Green Day had helped bring Rotten's band back into the spotlight. The Black Keys versus Jack White blues rock battle. The Black Keys and Jack White's feud started over something simple: style. The Black Keys, a raw blues rock duo, began to rise to fame, and their sound inevitably drew comparisons to Jack White's band, the White Stripes. They both relied on stripped-down, guitar-heavy blues rock with a gritty edge, but Jack White wasn't exactly flattered by these similarities. In fact, he started to believe that the Black Keys were copying his style. He wasn't shy about sharing his opinions, and things got tense. The Black Keys, unaware of the connection, rented a studio in Nashville, only to find out later that it was owned by none other than Jack White himself. The situation quickly turned into a mess when emails between the two bands went public, full of accusations and passive-aggressive jabs. It was clear that Jack White didn't take too kindly to the idea that the Black Keys were treading on his turf, and he wasn't afraid to show it. The confrontation escalated when Patrick Carney, the drummer for the Black Keys, claimed that Jack White had actually tried to pick a fight with him at a bar. Whether that was a true story or just the growing frustration spilling over, we'll never know. But what we do know is that the tension between the bands was palpable, and it played out in the media and in their music. The long-term effects of this feud were felt by both bands, with the drama affecting their public images and personal relationships. While the bad blood has cooled somewhat, it left a scar, reminding us how even in the rock and roll world, competition and rivalry can easily get personal. Oasis's Liam and Noel Gallagher, family feud gone wild. The Gallagher brothers, Liam and Noel, turned what could have been a dynamic musical duo into a train wreck of epic proportions. The two started Oasis with great promise, but their constant bickering and outright physical altercations made it clear that their relationship was anything but harmonious. It wasn't just your run-of-the-mill sibling rivalry. It was a full-blown public spectacle that made their band's touring experience more dramatic than the music itself. From early on, tensions were high and things only got worse from there. One of the most iconic moments was when Liam mocked Noel during a performance, and in typical Gallagher fashion, it escalated quickly. Then came the famous tambourine incident where Liam threw a tambourine at Noel's head. This moment wasn't just a small disagreement. It was a symbol of the brewing chaos behind Oasis's music. The final straw came in 1999 when Liam showed up to a recording session drunk and surrounded by random strangers, prompting Noel to snap and reportedly attack him with a bat. Their relationship had deteriorated to the point where no amount of music or success could fix it, but it didn't end there. For years, the brothers traded insults in the media, creating a toxic atmosphere around Oasis. Every interview, every show became about the drama, overshadowing the music they made. The tension not only impacted their personal lives, but also defined Oasis's public image. Even though Noel eventually quit Oasis in 2009, the damage had been done. Fans still wonder if the Gallagher brothers will ever reunite, but with their long-standing feud and years of personal issues, it's hard to imagine them ever burying the hatchet. Can they finally let go of the past, or will the drama always follow them around? Only time will tell, but one thing's for sure. Oasis's legacy will forever be tied to the family feud that almost destroyed it. So, what are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments below.